and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about books releasing in 2026 that are really high on my TBR. These are the books I am super excited about. Some of these books are already out, some of these books are getting new traditionally published deals this year. Some of them are just proofs that I've been sent recently that I'm very excited to read that I want to talk to you about. I did something similar to this where right at the beginning of the year I spoke about my most anticipated releases of 2026. So there's some new ones in here that I didn't mention in that video, but actually these are all books that I have physically in my hand that I am going to be prioritizing reading over the next few months. Do you have a book like that? Is there a book that's on your shelf that's released this year that you're seeing all the hype about, that you are desperate to get into? If so, let me know in the comments. And before I dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe as well, because it really helps me out. The first book I want to talk about, I am so excited about. It's being published by Wayward, which have been publishing some absolute gems. And I first heard about this from the author at the Wayward launch event. I've been excited about it ever since. And look what showed up on my doorstep yesterday. I haven't actually opened this properly yet, so I thought we could maybe open it together. So this is like a little sleeve that they've put the proof in. We also have a little dagger stuck inside, which I think is a super cute addition. And then we have the actual book itself. So I think I've already mentioned it, but if not, this is Steelborn by Taylor J. Laru. There's lots of reasons I'm excited about this book. I think the number one reason is this has one of my favorite female character types, and it's that like thief, shadowy, like sneaking around the cobble streets in the fantasy world, like nicking things. That is my kind of vibe. That is what I want. I want some kind of like thief or assassin or like criminal. I don't know why, guys. It's just, I like what I like. And the other main character in this is an immortal who is fated to die. This has like two warrior main characters, and honestly I've been really vibing that recently, particularly within like Starside. I loved it. I have been eating up things exactly like this, you know, your more high epic fantasy, your sword or dagger wielding female main characters, your like doomed romance, your forbidden love, your quest across the country to find an object or to find a thing or to enter a competition. Like, I have just been loving every single thing that feels like this. And hearing the author talk about this, I was obsessed. I think if you've enjoyed books like Shield of Sparrows, Quicksilver, Starside, like all of that kind of thing that's super popular at the moment, this should absolutely be on your radar. And it feels really reminiscent of one of my favourite series, which is Blood and Steel by Helen Scheurer. So I'm really excited to dive into this world. The book isn't actually out until August, so you've got quite a while to wait for this one, but definitely go and have a look, see if this is your kind of thing, and get it pre-ordered. This is definitely my priority TBR. It feels a bit bad because it's in August, but I feel like I'm gonna have to sack off the rest of my TBR to get to this. And bonus points for any time there is a red-headed female lead. I actually dyed my hair red because of Poppy from Blood and Ash, and this is how I've looked now for 5 years. So anytime there's a redhead female main character, sold. Next up is a book I'm hearing nothing but positive things about. I've literally not seen anybody read this book and not enjoy it, and so many people are like, oh my god, 18 stars, my favourite book of the year. And I'm sat here going, why haven't I read this yet? Why is this on my shelf and I've not read it? The book is A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon Spann. I talk about my friend Laura a lot. She's quite an influence on the amount of books that are on my shelf. This is actually one she thinks I will love. She's been begging me to read this one. This is a fantasy standalone with some romance, I believe, and I definitely need to be reading more standalones because I am in the middle of so many longer series, or I've like read book one of the series and not the rest. So anytime there's a standalone, it immediately goes on my priority TBR because it's kind of a one and done situation. I know I can read this and then I don't have to worry about a book two. This is where someone tells me in the comments that I've been lied to, and this is the start of a series. This is compared to Caraval meets One Dark Window, and actually when I was reading the description of this book, the love interest sounds a little bit like Jax from Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I was kind of like, ooh, I haven't had a male love interest like him for a while. That would be really interesting to read. But also the premise of this and like the players and these immortal people and the fact that she's going to die and the fact that she might be the villain of her own story, like all of it just sounds like a little bit, I don't know, just like it's going to send me through a loop and I'm going to be scratching my head like I was throughout Caraval, being like, I don't know what's happening, but I do like what's happening, whatever that might be. I'm hearing fantastic things about this one. It's quite high on my TBR anyway, just because of all the positive reviews I'm seeing about it. I hadn't even read the blurb before I picked this up. I just picked this up based on the amount of hype it was getting. Then I learned it was a standalone, and then I learned it was like a little bit wacky, a little bit weird, a little bit One Dark Window-esque, which is one of my favourite duologies, and I was like, you know what, fine. I'll buy the book, I'll put it on my shelf, I'll get to it soon. I should have read this book already, this next one. I kind of feel rude that I haven't read it. This is one of my favourite authors of all time. I love her. I've read so many of her books, but I haven't read her newest release. The book is Dragon Cursed by Elise Kova. I'm pretty sure this came out in 2026. Bear with me. It did. I know it released earlier on in the year. Lots of people have already read this one. It did release in 2026. It still counts for the video. I haven't read a dragon fantasy romance in a long time. And I think certainly in 2024, I was dragon romantasied out. Like, all of my favourite books were dragon romantasies, and I've not read one for a while. Now I have one. Now I have one to devour. This is a really pretty, is this like the first print edition? It's so gorgeous. This is described as bloodthirsty and brutally fun by Bridget Kemmer as well. And I'm like, what does brutally fun mean? Because I want to know. If I know anything about Elise Kova, it means I'm going to love these characters. It means the magic system is going to be really cool. The world is going to be excellently done. Like, I just think Elise Kova writes some of my favourite fantasy just in its world building and its storytelling and like the way everything is crafted. But actually my favourite things about Elise Kova are often her characters. Like, I just think she does people and complex people so well. And I get the impression the male love interest in this is like a bit of a guard figure, a bit of a bodyguard, or like a royal guard, some kind of guard. You know how I feel about guards. Anytime there is a guard in a romantasy as a love interest, I want 5 copies of it. Give me 10 actually. I'm really excited about this one. I loved Arcana Academy. I've loved lots of Elise's more historic work. I'm very excited to dive into this one too. Next up is a book that quite literally nobody will shut up about, and that is Daggermouth. What are you? Are you dystopian? I believe this one is an adult dystopian romance, and I am seeing this everywhere. I have been loving dystopian a lot recently. I have recently read The Gravewood, which is YA dystopian fantasy. I've read To Cage a Wild Bird, which was one of my favourite books of last year, which was dystopian fantasy. Silver Elite, which was delicious dystopian. I'm on a real dystopian kick, and I think, watch somebody correct me in the comments that it's not dystopian. It sounds dystopian from what I'm hearing. It's dystopian. I'm also hearing it's a little bit dark and has quite a gritty storyline and a gritty main character, and there's quite a lot of like violence in here, which, hey, I'm here for it. The book is being traditionally published as well. I'm not quite sure how there was an indie pub version of it, but there was, and I got my hands on a copy. It's just been one of those. In fact, the only reason I haven't read this yet, I almost read it in March. The only reason I didn't pick this up is I was just looking for something a little bit lighter, and one of my friends warned me that this does have quite a few darker moments. So I was like, you know what, maybe not right now. I'm probably going to enjoy you a bit more like next month or the month after. And I'm also seeing some of the character art coming out of this book, and I just want to be obsessed with these people. I want to know who they are. I want to dive in. Like, part of me is just like flicking through looking for something juicy. But everything that I'm hearing in reviews of this makes it absolutely sound something that I will love. I can see this being easily a 4 or 5 star read for me. And I am very excited to pick this one up when I get to it. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't already, because it does sound like everything I would love in a book. Whilst we're on the topic of dystopian, and whilst we're on the topic of books I'm surprised I've not read yet, Broken Dove by Dani Francis is also on this list. I adored Silver Elite. It was one of my favourite books of last year. I've really been in a dystopian kick. The facial expressions I'm seeing people pull reading book 2 is sending me wild. I adored book 1. I think I'm going to love this one too. The only reason I've not dived into this yet, I want to say I've had this copy a couple of weeks now. I can't decide whether I'm going to reread book 1 or not. I haven't really read too much dystopian this year. I've just been reading some other things. So I feel like I'm going to need to do a reread and like set apart some time to read both of them together. I remember the ending of book 1 being crazy, and I do remember what happens, but I just feel like I want to read the run up to that again to see if I missed anything, or like if there's any Easter eggs I can spot now I know how it ends. I love doing that when books have such a huge twist at the end and you go back and you're like, oh well, look, this happened, how did I not see it coming? So I think I want to prioritize rereading first before I dive on to book 2. But I know this is on so many people's lists of books that are coming out this year that they're desperate to get to. I am trying to read this before May. It comes out in literally a month's time. Doing a lot of traveling in April, so I don't know that I'm going to get around to it, but I'm really going to try. Maybe I'll finish my current read and do a bit of a reread. But Broken Dove is up there. In fact, this is a book I'm surprised I haven't picked up yet. A couple of these I'm already like, oh, I wish I would have read them already. But I just remember being left reeling at the end of book 1. And I remember when this showed up, I was about ready to sack off my entire TBR. This book is also quite long as well. She's 600 pages, the proof. What trauma do you behold that you need 600 pages in which to deliver it? And again, I've been in a bit of a weird space where I've kind of been jumping between like fantasy and contemporary romance this year, and I've just never lingered in one long enough to really dive in. So actually maybe something like Silver Elite and Broken Dove would help break that up a little bit. Hey, see what I did there? I won't say too much more about this one. I think this one and Daggermouth I'm gonna have to read around the same kind of time. Just gonna have to lock in for like a dystopian month. Up next is a book I didn't actually know about until I got it in my Fairy Loot box, and I'm so happy that I didn't know anything about this because I am so excited to dive in, and that that is Weavingshaw. I believe this one is a YA dark academia fantasy. Again, as much as I love a dystopian, dark academia is one of my favourite subgenres of like the fantasy genre. This one has this like gorgeous, gloomy appeal to it. I'm so happy I have the special edition. The standard edition is gorgeous, but there is something about this edition particularly, this is a Fairy Loot edition, that I just think is selling me on this world immediately. Like, I didn't even have to read the blurb before I was like, whoa, what are you? You're going on my top of my TBR. This edition has really beautiful black and white character art as well that also sold me. This one is really reminding me of Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie that I absolutely adored. I think the female main character in this one can speak to the dead or see the dead, and if you haven't read Immortal Consequences, that one is a dark academia set in the afterlife, so all the people in that story are, I guess, ghosts. And then the setting is like a cursed estate on the moors. It just looks slightly gothic and moody and atmospheric, and you know those three words are keywords that my brain switches onto and I lock in and I go, you said what now? What was it called? Who was the author? Let me write it down. If you got a copy, I'll buy one. I don't know actually whether this one is a standalone or the first in a series. I could see it going either way. If you do know, I could have a Google, but if you do know, let me know in the comments. I think this is the first in a series. I'm really looking forward into this one. There's something about YA dark academia that really does it for me as well. All of my favourite dark academias usually sit in the YA space. I'm talking like A Study in Drowning, Immortal Consequences, Immortal Dark by Tigist Germer. So this is anything like any of those. I think I'm going to love this one. And I'm saving this for when like it gets a bit rainy and moody outside. I just want to curl up with a book. I love reading things like this when I have a whole day to just get lost in it. Light a candle, make a coffee, dive into this, maybe with a pastry. It's going to be a vibe. Anything set in like a crumbling manor or a crumbling house or a crumbling anything. It was on a crumbling cliff, like just any of it, done. Sold. 10 out of 10. And I tell you what, kudos to Fairy Loot for making an edition of a book I didn't know anything about that made me look at it and immediately know what this was going to be and be like, hell yeah, that's going on my TBR. I couldn't make this video and not talk about the fact that Helen Scheurer has got a republish of Slaying the Shadow Prince, but it's now just called The Shadow Prince, coming out in 2026. This one is releasing in May. Now it's at the top of my TBR because I want to reread it, but it's also at the top of my TBR because I'm interviewing Helen Scheurer in London. I know, wild developments. If you haven't seen, I have a whole video talking about the Thesmar world, my recommended reading order, what I love so much about it, why it's one of my favourite series of all time. And Slaying the Shadow Prince is actually one of my favourites within that space, so I definitely will be excited to give this a reread and see if anything has changed. This one is a standalone romance, and I do recommend reading this in conjunction with the other books in the Thesmar world. And if you have never heard me talk about this series before, I honestly think this series, obviously this is a standalone within the series, so this world is the perfect mix of this like The Witcher-esque, dark, moody. How many times have I said dark, moody, atmospheric and gritty in this video? Look, I've got a type. I have a taste, okay? And it's a certain specific thing, and it's just what I know I'm gonna love. But it is balanced with such a lush romance. Like, one of my favourite couples of all time is Thea and Wilder. I do also love Talamir and Drew. This one has some delicious dagger to throat moments. This one's an enemies to lovers. So this one is a reread. It's still really high up my TBR. I'm prioritising it as a reread because I want to give it a read now that it's been traditionally published. This also has like a little bit of a monster romance element as well. I forget that he's like a little bit, what do they call him? He's a Shadow Wraith-esque kind of person. Okay, bear with me. That's where the crux of this forbidden romance's enemies to lovers come from, because Drew has spent her life hunting them down. You probably could have guessed that this one was going to be on here, but yeah, this is right at the top of the list too. Next up is another book that was originally independently published that I didn't get to read whilst it was independently published, and it's now being traditionally published, and I want to read it. So I actually have the indie copy, but I've also pre-ordered the trad version, and that is Kissed by the Gods by Katie Rogan. I think this initially piqued my interest when I just heard the word Pegasus. There's been something about fantasy that has a focus on like mythical creatures and elements of like animals and monstrous animals in fantasy that I've really been vibing with. This I don't think has that monstrous element. I don't actually know, obviously I haven't read it yet, but it does have Pegasus is in it. Pegasuses? It does have Pegasuses in the book. I think another thing a lot of these have in common as well is that warrior female archetype. Like, that is something that I've been really vibing with, particularly since reading. I think I'm just chasing the high of Blood and Steel, of having Thea as that warrior type character. I'm looking for something like that again. This also has elements of like gods and goddesses and having to fight in a war for the gods that like she never signed up for. that's reminding me of some of my favourite stories from like Divine Rivals, and also what feels like a very fresh and unique divine sense of magic, which I'm very excited to dive into. I don't know if this is still available, but I'm also going to be trying to read with this the prequel novella Unwritten by the Gods. Even though these are in the same genre that I usually enjoy, these really feel quite different from anything else that I've been reading recently. And I'm seeing lots of positive early reviews for the traditionally published version, as well as lots of people raving about the indie version too. And I'm also seeing this author in September at a book signing, so I feel like I'm going to try and get a wriggle on and read these before I go. And last on the list for now, because I'm constantly looking around me and seeing other books I should probably have included, is Riffborn by Parker Lennox and Brie Greenwich. I was lucky enough to go and meet these authors for an afternoon tea in March. I actually have the indie editions of this book behind me. This is one that I bought last year as part of my trying to find new indie authors, and then they immediately got picked up. So I have had these books for a while, but I have just been waiting to see the traditionally published version because I've heard there's some changes in here. This one has actually been on my TBR for quite some time. It releases in April now, so pretty much when you're watching this video, this has probably just come out or is just about to come out. And I've been saving this for when I'm ready. What I've heard about this is like the world is quite intense and there is a lot of world building, lots of kind of history and lore, and I love diving into that within my fantasy books. I've been waiting for a time that I'm ready to just like fully embrace a new fantasy world and make it my entire personality, because I genuinely think these are going to be 5-star god tier reads for me. I like this idea of this like hungry, all-consuming magic. That was a theme kind of within the War of Lost Hearts series, which I really loved. And obviously seeing this being reviewed by all of my favourite fantasy romance booktokers, bookstagrammers, booktubers has put this up my TBR. I have been heavily influenced by you lots. I know lots of you have already read this one, lots of you have been telling me to read this one for the longest time, so if you have, leave me some encouragement, tell me that I need to pick this one up immediately in the comments below. And I think this getting traditionally published has bumped it up my TBR, because as I said, I've got the copies, I've just been waiting for this version to come out. I don't think the changes are too heavy, but the authors did mention that there have been quite a few tweaks in this one. So if anybody has read both, let me know, how different is the original to this one? I never know whether to read the indie, the new one. I'm going to read the new one because this is obviously has the series will continue to come out now. This looks like my kind of thing. This looks like the kind of Throne of Glassy, Lady of Darkness, also a bit of When the Moon Hatched, just all those kind of vibes. That is what this feels like to me. And those are all books I loved, so I have probably the highest expectations for this one out of everything on this list, just because it does in fact sound like a bit of me. Actually, by the time you're watching this video, I might have read this. I am trying to prioritize reading this before it comes out. I'm filming this on the 29th of March, so probably a few weeks ago from when you're watching it. So who knows, maybe I've already finished this one and I'm hoping I've given it 5 stars. That is certainly not everything that's come out so far this year or is coming out in the next few months that I could have spoke about in this video. But that is where I'm going to leave it for today. Let me know if you want to see more of these. I think as we get more and more into the year, there are so many more releases that I'm aware of that are coming out that I'm going to be feral for. So we could absolutely keep this as a series, and I could put another one in a couple months from now to see what else has kind of hit the bookstores or what else has been announced that I just don't know about right now. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to let me know what your most anticipated read of 2026 is, whether it's come out this year or it's an older read. But other than that, I will see you in the next one.